When it comes to gathering in Albion Online, the Roads of Avalon is probably one of the most lucrative places to do so. But getting there and navigating them can be a bit tricky. So today, I'm going to go over everything you need to know when it comes to the Roads of Avalon, including how to get there, how to navigate them, and how you can find the resources you're looking for. Also, stay tuned to the end of the video where I announce this last week's giveaway winners for 2 7-day premium codes. So 2 lucky winners will be announced at the end of today's video. Thank you all, and let's get into it. So the first and most obvious place to access the Roads of Avalon is going to be from the open world. Now, this is what the open world portals look like when you're roaming in the zone. Almost every open world zone, whether it's a red zone, a blue zone, a yellow zone, even up here in the black zones, almost every open world zone is going to have a Road of Avalon, and this is what they look like on the map. So they'll look like this. Now, I just came out of it, so mine has a gold ring around it, meaning it's free for me to go back in without using a portal charge, but typically they will also just look gray. So when you go into a Road of Avalon, I can show you. So they'll look like this, but on the open world map. So again, the most common place you're going to find Roads of Avalon entrances is from the open world. And the name of the zone will be highlighted when you hover over it. This is especially important if you have a guild with a hideout and you're trying to find connections. You'll need to know which zones connect to what zones. Now, the second place to enter the Roads of Avalon is going to be from the City in the Mists, Brazilian. Now, you have to be able to access Brazilian to get to this portal, and the easiest way to do that is when you roam in the open world, you go in through a wisp, and then you have to do objectives, whether it is freeing caged wisps, escorting injured wisps, or clearing the camps inside those mists. That will get you reputation. You have to meet the first level of reputation to be able to access Brazilian. I can make a separate video on that later on. But once you do have access to Brazilian, on the top floor of the city, there's 3 floors. There's the bottommost where all the shops are, the middlemost where the bank and the marketplace are, and then the topmost where there's going to be where you use the artificer, a couple other things, a mist portal, but then over here on the southwest side, there is a unstable road. Now, the unstable road at the top floor of Brazilian will take you into the Roads of Avalon, but it will drop you in a completely random spot. So, there's no way to know specifically where it's going to drop you. It could be a shallow road. It could be, for instance here, a hideout zone, and I'll explain what these are in just a minute. But there is no way to tell specifically where it's going to drop you. Now, while the portal in Brazilian is truly random and you don't know where that one's going to drop you, coming back to the open world, there is an easy way to know where the open world portal is going to put you in the Roads of Avalon, and specifically which tier you're going to get. So, if you look down here at the map, I am in a yellow zone. Entering the Roads of Avalon from a blue zone or a yellow zone will always bring you into a tier 4 road zone. And you can see that denoted here by the symbol or by the map name. Another easy way to tell is just if you take a quick jaunt into the off-road. If you don't pay attention to the map, you don't notice it, whatever it may be. You take a quick little jaunt into the off-road. The tier of enemies that you see here will also denote the tier of the zone you're in. So these are tier 4, these are tier 4 gathering enemies. So that tells me this is a tier 4 zone. So like I said, entering from a blue or a yellow zone will bring you into a tier 4 road zone. Whereas entering from a black zone or a red zone, such as the zone I'm in now, will always bring you into a tier 6 road zone. So as you can see down at the bottom, this is now a tier 6 zone. And then, of course, if you're not paying attention to the map, or you're just running, and I don't know, sometimes, I don't pay attention to the map. That's just how it is. You come in, you look at the enemy, that's a tier 6. You know, you go a little further, you'll find some tier 6 gathering somewhere around here. Probably. Or not. Oh, there it is. So tier 6 gathering, tier 6 enemies. That tells you that you are in a tier 6 zone. So now you know how to enter and how to access the Roads of Avalon. Next is how to navigate the Roads of Avalon. Now, you've probably noticed every time you're in the roads and you run up to a portal, there are these rings, and you're probably wondering what it all means. So now I'm going to break down what each of these symbols means on the spinning ring surrounding a roads portal. Starting with the innermost ring. So you'll see this symbol, these two symbols, and this symbol here. Now, to be 100% honest, these are less relevant these days than they used to be. For any OG player, they may remember that there used to be 2-man green Roads of Avalon portals compared to these 7-man blue portals. This inner ring would denote the size of the group that would typically be allowed to enter. So a green portal would most likely have a 1 dash, symbolizing that one person could go in. The two symbols, or the 2 dashes here, symbolize a small group, i.e. a 7-man. And these multiple symbols, or these multiple dashes here, are typically reserved for gold portals with 20 people charges. So this inner ring, not really the most relevant these days. Now, this middle ring is where things get important. This middle ring will tell you the tier of the zone that you're entering. So going into the next portal. So for instance, Cerritos Ependlum will be a tier 4 zone. So I will break down how to read these. You're going to read the dots, not the lines. So this is a tier 4 symbol. Then we have tier 5, tier 6, tier 7, and tier 8. So as you can see on screen, it's by counting the dots, not the dashes themselves. Now, it's important to note that the Roads of Avalon will only ever be even tiered. You won't be inside a tier 7 road. You won't be inside a tier 5 road. You will only ever be inside a tier 4, 6, or 8 road. Now, that doesn't mean you won't find those tier of enemies or materials, and I will break that down in just a little bit, but the roads will always be categorized by even tiers, so tier 4, 8, or 6. Now, this outermost ring is going to tell you the exact type of zone that you're going into. So middle ring tells you the tier of the zone, outer ring will tell you the type of the zone. So we'll start over here with this one ring, this hollow ring. This is blue zone. Then over here, 2 rings is yellow zone. A ring and a solid circle is red zone. A big solid circle is black zone. So these 4 will bring you to the open world. So blue zone, yellow zone, red zone, black zone. Now these symbols over here, this one is an Avalonian crossroad. Or at least I call it a crossroad. It's called like a Carrefour or something like that. I don't actually know how to pronounce that. So Avalonian crossroad. This is going to have multiple portals, some leading to the open world and some leading to deeper into the roads. So if this were a crossroad tier 4, it would lead into blue or yellow zone open world. If it is a crossroad tier 6, it will lead into a black or red zone open world. Then this symbol is the Avalonian corridor. What that means is it's going to have a limited number of portals, typically 1 or 2, that go deeper or connect to another Road of Avalon. So it will not have any open world portals. Then I'm going to skip this one real quick and come to this one. This is an Avalonian rest. This is going to be where you are able to find and place guild hideouts. So if you are in a guild that lives in the Roads of Avalon, they have a hideout in the Avalonian Rest. Now over here, this is an Avalonian Sanctuary. This is going to be where you find good dungeons, good chests, solid gathering spots. This one, with the rounded dead end, typically denotes that it is a tier 4 or a tier 6 Avalonian Sanctuary. This one with the spiky dead end, this is where you're going to find high tier gold chests, maybe Avalonian dungeons, as well as most likely it's going to be attached to a tier 8 zone, so you'll find strong tier 8 gathering beasts as well. So that is how you read these spinning rings. When you are running up to the portal, you always want to check what these rings are, because if you're hunting for something specific, these are going to tell you exactly where you want to go. Another important thing to denote when you're looking for zones, if you want to know where a hideout zone is, but let's say you're away from the portal, you just zone in and you're looking, and I know these are open world, but let's pretend for a second this has a road name, and you want to know if it's a hideout zone or an Avalonian rest. There are very simple ways to tell. The first and foremost, as you can see by the name that we have on the screen, it has both signifiers there. Any zone that has 3 names, so something et something, something al something, that is going to be an Avalonian rest, which means that it going in there is going to have hideout zones. The second signifier to tell is if it has the Latin prefix for a number. Most easily if it starts with a QU, but then also with an SE, so sectune. That is the Latin prefix for 7. Now, I don't speak Latin, so, figure out what QUA and all that stuff actually means. I'm pretty sure it's 4. But anything with a QU or an SE, or the Latin prefix for numbers, will also lead into a hideout zone. Not all the time will these Avalonian rests, these hideout zones, have the 3 name signifiers. So it may be Sectune Avalsum, maybe, but that will still be a hideout zone because it has that prefix for a number. So now you know how to identify which zones are which based on their names and their spinning ring. Now, talking about names, a fun fact doesn't really make much bearing to your experience in the roads, but a fun fact, if you look down here, the first letter of the first word in a Road of Avalon name will depict its shape. So this one is Kuros Avalsum, and then if you look here, the road is shaped like a C. Now obviously it's flipped around a little bit, but for the most part it will be shaped in the first letter, or shaped as the first letter of the road name. So, fun fact, nothing really that has too much bearing to your experience, but it's always good to know. Now, since I am a gatherer, when it comes to gathering, the most important thing to note when it comes to gathering in the Roads of Avalon is what tiers of material you're going to find. Now, I know I mentioned that the Roads of Avalon will always be even-tiered, but you will not only ever find even-tiered resources here. And that's good to know, because you don't only want to find tier 4, 6, or 8, you also want to find tier 5 and 7, depending on what you need spec in, what you're trying to level. So, I am in a tier 6 zone right now, but tier 4 zones will always have tier 4, tier 5, and tier 6 materials. So I'll repeat that. In a tier 4 Road of Avalon, you can always find the tiers 4, 5, and 6 materials in a tier 4 Road of Avalon. Now, in a tier 6 Road of Avalon, like what I'm in now, you will always be able to find tier 5, tier 6, and tier 7 materials in the Road of Avalon, in the gathering spots. So again, tier 6 will always have 5, 6, and 7 tiered materials. And then, of course, tier 8, you will have tier 6, tier 7, and tier 8 materials in the gathering spots. So, now that you know what tier materials you can find in what zones, it's important to know where you can find what materials. You'll notice on the map, the material symbols show up. So we've got a very large ore spot, we've got a small wood spot, and we have a small stone spot. So obviously, we're going to be able to find ore, wood, and stone in these spots. But it is also very important to know that every spot has the primary, which is what is depicted on the map, and the secondary resource. So you will still find elementals and nodes of that secondary resource. So starting with the ore spot that we're in, you can find ore and stone. Then when it comes to wood over there, you're going to be able to find wood and fiber. Then over here in the the stone spot, you're going to be able to find stone and wood. Then not available in this zone, but I'll still discuss it, the hide spot will have hide and ore, and then the fiber spot will have fiber and hide. So every spot, whether it is a big spot or a small spot, will have two. It'll have a primary and a secondary. So if you're hunting for, let's say, hide, and you're in a zone and you're like, oh no, there's no hide spots, but there's a fiber spot, it is still worth checking that fiber spot out because you can still find hide elementals at that spot. And the very last thing to note when it comes to gathering in the Roads of Avalon is treasures. Just like in open world, treasures will appear on the map with this symbol of the resource that it is, with the, the spiky golden glow around it. The tier of the treasure will always be based on the tier of the zone. So you will only find the tier of the zone treasures in here. So tier 4, tier 6, or tier 8. You will unfortunately not find tier 5 or tier 7 treasures on the off-road of the Roads of Avalon. Now, the enchant rate is random. Roads do not have an enchant multiplier like the Blackstone does. It is truly random what you will find. Tier 6, in my experience, you're going to most commonly find 6 flat or 6-1. Tier 4, I really genuinely most commonly find 4-2. So if you're in a tier 4 zone and it's a 4-2, go for it because that's still valuable. And then tier 8, I realistically only find 8 flat, but occasionally 8-1. But again, the treasures on the off-road will be the tier of the zone, whether it's 4, 6, or 8. Now, when it comes to finding tier 8 portals or tier 8 zones in the Roads of Avalon, they're a little bit less accessible than your tier 6 or your tier 4 zones. So tier 6 and tier 4, you can obviously access them from the open world, as I've explained. Tier 4 coming from blue and yellow, and tier 6 coming from black and red. Tier 8 zones can only be found inside the Roads of Avalon. Now, most typically, you're going to find them in the form of golden portals inside the Avalonian rests. So in those hideout zones, you will occasionally see golden portals with 20-person charges. Those are going to be tier 8 zones. Now, rarely you will find a blue portal on the map, right? No indicator on the map that it is a tier 8 zone, but running up to it, you will see that it is in fact tier 8 based on the number of dots, and this is a tier 8 sanctuary, which is usually just associated with a 7-man portal. So going into it, this is where you're going to find your tier 8 resources, as well as a Brazilian portal. So if you have Brazilian unlocked, this is an easy way to get from the roads to Brazilian without constantly jumping through the mists. And it will connect to just another normal road. So again, here is where you can find slightly stronger chests if you're fame farming, as well as a lot more tier 8 resources. So again, reaching back to those synergies, as you can see here in the small fiber zone, you have fiber, which is of course tier 8, as well as hide. So here we have an 8-1 bear. Now it's not an elemental, but you'll still be able to kill it and gather the hide, and you can find it here. And occasionally, let's see, perfect, you can also find hide elementals in these fiber spots as well. Now the smaller ones are less likely to have the secondary resource, whereas the bigger ones are more likely to have elementals of their secondary resource. But overall, it's still, accessible and still a potential option there. And one of the very last things I want to point out about the Roads of Avalon is the speed boosters. So you'll see symbols like this occasionally on the road when you're running. These are, simply put, speed boosters. You run over them, they give you a boost of speed for, I want to say it's like 10 seconds. Let's see. So boost to speed. So it's 5 seconds. You get a 5-second boost to speed. And this is especially good if, as a gatherer, you're trying to escape gankers. And of course, if you are a ganker, you're trying to catch the gatherers. If you're on a faster mount, you'll be able to overtake them quite easily by using these speed boosts. And that is the complete breakdown of the Roads of Avalon and everything you need to know to become a master at accessing, navigating, and taking full advantage for maximum profit. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to announce the winners of the 7-day premium code giveaway. We have 2 codes to give away, so that means 2 lucky winners. So congratulations, and everybody say congrats down in the comments down below to Zarski and Beast Girl. So congratulations, Zarski and Beast Girl. Thank you all for entering. The winners will also be announced in my Discord. All I need you to do to claim it is just message in your ticket, so that way I can DM you the code. Also, let me know in the comments below if you liked this method of giveaway and would like to see it done more in the future. I have plenty more codes to give away, and we can do more than 2 if this gets good traction. So again, thank you all so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I will see you guys next time.